Okay.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
And we're live. This is the Thejewfunction. Hello, everyone. Seth, how are you? And Joseph.
Hey guys.
Usually we do like Seth and I talk, and then we bring our guests. But because we know Joseph so well, we figured we could just bring him on from the first moment, I guess.
Sure. Hey, everyone.
Hey man.
So I'll just say a couple quick words about Joseph, and thank you everyone for your patience. We're a little late, but it's going to be worth it. Joseph is A, is a good friend. B, Seth has a side romance with Joseph. They host the Great Transition. But when is it? Well, they'll plug it later, and which is another great podcast. And Joseph, he's got a master's in social communications, right? Help me out here. Good. And he's an educator, a communicator. He makes films and digital content, and he teaches on KabU. He teaches Kabbalah. So it's going to be very interesting. And the reason why we brought him actually is because in the last 2.5 months.
It's already it's a bit more than 2 months. Yeah.
2 months. Joseph has spent time as a medic, as a reservist. He's a medic in his reserve service, and he's been out there with the people, with soldiers, close to the front in the south. And so he's got a whole new feeling that we'd love to also get a feel for here ourselves. So I hope to hear about that. I'll just say that before we jump in, that the Thejewfunction, if you're familiar with us, great. If you're not familiar, please check out the podcast. We always recommend people start from episode 1, or at least do the first 22 episodes, because they give the chronological timeline, the reason, the root cause of anti-Semitism according to the laws of nature, Jewish sages, and network science. And after that, you understand where we're coming from and where we want to go. So like and subscribe if you haven't. And I guess this is it. So, Joseph, are we winning the war? I think everybody wants to know.
Well,
And when's going to be over?
Yeah. Well, it's never going to be over until until all wars are over. And are we winning? Depending on what front you're asking about. That's what I would say.
Well, yeah. Which front? Okay, so, all right. So we'll talk about the winning maybe later. We'll don't
right.
Give it up just yet.
Okay.
So tell us. So the you have a certain mindset about the world, about how things are, about what's going on in Israel and the world, and then October 7th happens, and obviously you live in Israel. You see what's happening on the streets before October 7th. You see the craziness. You see the civil war brewing. You hear the voices, some of which we're already hearing again, sadly. But you see all that, you hear all that, and then the 7th happens, and then you get called in. Give us a little kind of a little zoom in on that experience. What happens? What changes for you when that happens? When you get called in?
When I get called, that's a big thing for me, because it changes, first of all, your whole daily routine changes. All of a sudden, you're putting on a uniform. You're in the army now, and you're a soldier. And all of a sudden, you have to be with a bunch of people that otherwise you would never be in contact with, which is an interesting situation in and of itself. But with the background of everything that's happening, that makes it extremely special and extremely interesting. My perspective on the whole thing that's happening is that there is it's a spiritual drama that is happening right now in Israeli society, and I got to be a part of it and feel it really close because of going to the army service. That's kind of, in a headline, that's what I would say. It's a spiritual drama beyond the tragedy of what happened on the 7th, and which is a drama in and of itself. There's a bigger spiritual drama that's taking place, I would say, a drama that has to do with the Jewish identity, the Israeli identity, the relationship of the Jews and the rest of the world. And that drama is actually, just a point in time within a much bigger process that's been taking place for, actually a few thousand years, as you guys have been talking about, I guess, probably in every one of your episodes. I assume that comes up. But I'm really seeing what's happening today as part of this gigantic process that is happening, and it's truly dramatic. And yeah, we can definitely go into it. I'm just looking to see what angle you want us to get into it from. Yeah.
Just to put a moment of context for anyone who doesn't know. So in the United States, 350 million people, the military is completely voluntary. The military is made up of people who choose to enlist. Israel has 6 million or something like that, and just explain for a second that it's compulsory and who it's compulsory.
No, it's
for.
also voluntary, but you have to serve. But it's voluntary. But if you don't serve, they're gonna
you have to volunteer.
You have to volunteer, exactly. It's still voluntary.
But each person, I think that it's like investing or anything else in life. If you have skin in the game, it feels different. And would I be willing to send my children to fight for a country who has certain policies? Once you're willing to fight yourself or send your children to fight, you have to kind of believe what you're fighting in. Mm-hmm. And so I think it changes the nature of the spirit of the country as well. So
no doubt. There are a lot of things that make that have to do with being an Israeli that come from the fact that we all have to serve in the army. There's no doubt that it creates some sort of a melting pot, also from a demographic perspective, social perspective, cultural perspective. But it's different than in other countries where being in the army is not something you have to do or find yourself doing in most cases. Yeah. And also it's a mirror, like you said, it's actually a mirror of, to an extent, to the spirit of the nation, if you will, because Leo said it interestingly. He said, yeah, you volunteer, but you have to volunteer. It's actually, it's pretty accurate, because if you really don't want to be there, you won't be there. If you really don't want to be there, that's the interesting thing. You can't, there's a limit to which you can force a person to serve in the army. And over, the short history of Israel, 75 years, you've seen ups and downs in the spirit, the voluntary spirit of the people. And obviously right now, after October 7th, the spirit is very high. That's another part of it. But yeah.
So who's required, just one second, so who's required to go, just for those who don't know, or volunteer to go, but who?
No, so essentially every man and woman.
What age?
At the age of 18 or so, they go and serve in the army, and there are some exceptions. And then there is Israel is made up of demographically different kinds of populations. There's mostly Jews, but there's also about 20% Arabs and Arab Israelis. They don't serve in the army. There's also a certain percentage of Orthodox people who don't serve in the army, and then the rest of the people, they do serve in the army.
And then after you serve for a couple of years, what's going on with the reserve? Like, how does a person like you, who's already a professional with a family,
right. So essentially, if you're an Israeli citizen and you've done your army service from the age of 18 to 21, in most cases until the age of 40, you can and will be called to some extent at a certain frequency to serve in the army, whether it's to do some kind of a training to keep your profession relevant, or whether it is to do actual something that the army needs you to do, or participate in a war. And weirdly enough, this isn't the first war that I participate in. I specifically am I'm a medic. I was in my regular army service from 18 to 21. I was in the I was a medic. I first actually did a basic training as a fighter. And then I went to a medics course, so you become like a medic. And then I stayed there in the medic school because I was good at teaching, and I did some tests, and then I became a medic instructor. And then actually my role, and later on I actually became an instructor of the instructors. So I was really like specializing in teaching in the medical school of the army, basically. That was my thing. And in the army, in their reserves situation, like now, I'm just a medic, basically. What I do right now these days, in the last 2.5 months or so, I'm about in a place that's about 20 minutes from Gaza. I'm not there in the battlefield. No, I'm 20 minutes away, and so it sounds close, but in Israel terms, it's not that close. Even right now,
to get milk here, so.
As we're speaking, Leo and I, are what, like an hour and a half at most from Gaza.
Yeah. I'm practically on the front lines. I just
right. So Israel's very small. People don't realize.
That's how far people here commute to work.
Right. Yeah. So I'm 20 minutes away. I'm in a base where there are people whose job is basically to carry the tanks and food and ammunition, things like that, to carry it in and out of Gaza. And I'm part of their medical team. I actually during the day I'm in a clinic with a few medics and a few doctors, and we're taking care of the soldiers who are doing these tasks, so they don't get hit that much. They just go in, they leave the stuff there, and they come back. But that's what I do. So it's not a lot of action, scary action in that sense, but it is being with a team in the army and just doing that.
Even when your team, like here, I'm trying to relate it to something that people could get behind. Like if your team is in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
In the US, right? So you plan that everyone's going to come over to my house. We're going to order wings and pizza. Like we start wearing the color of jersey on the day. It's like what else do we have here that we all kind of get behind and we're in it? I'm trying to imagine the emotion and the psychology of the nation who's like, as you're driving down to the base, you're like, I'm Superman. I'm going to save the nation. Like every person kind of getting into... We don't have, a lot of places don't have anything like that where their existence and their passion and everything coalesce into this, into something like this, where we're literally, if you lose, everyone dies, more or less. We don't have a home anymore. Could be the end of my family. That it's bigger than the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl is pretty big over here. I'm being facetious kind of, but I'm trying to paint something of what it's like for the spirit of the nation.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
To have an entire nation kind of rally like behind their Super Bowl team, but times a million.
Yeah. Well, let me take that and run with it. The entire nation, to have the entire nation rally. What's happening right now in the Israeli public, from my perspective, is fascinating. It's fascinating to even if you just study it from the outside, because there's a whole like emotional turmoil, social emotional turmoil that is happening in the Israeli public. In relation to not just what happened on the October 7th, but what is happening between us Israelis. That's a very interesting thing. And I would even say more than that, there's an emotional turmoil happening between Jews here and Jews abroad, but that's a bit less. It's a bit less felt. But let's talk about the Israeli public first. So
yeah, when you talk about the
Yeah.
public, just to focus it, because
sure.
We spoke in the last few episodes here. We talked a lot about what was going on in Israel before the 7th, and kind of the atmosphere. If you went out into Tel Aviv, into the demonstrations, and talked to protesters, and it was really vile. But then there was suddenly this huge shift, right? And it's especially felt down there. Especially there's something going on in this one intersection you mentioned. I think it's called Gilad intersection. It's not far from Gaza, far from where you are.
Yeah.
So tell people about like what's happening there. What's the feeling there, and how different it is than what was.
Okay. I understand you've talked about it quite a bit before, but let's do just for the sake of chronology. Let's kind of mention, before a few
We
days
have endless
before.
time here. Endless time. Go ahead.
A few days. Okay, we won't go to a few thousand years ago. Just a few days before October 7th. So we can do a few thousand years as well if you want, but afterwards, a few days before October 7th, everyone here in the Israeli public was very, very belligerent towards each other. There is extreme political division in the background. There's the legal reform and all that. There is extreme religious division to the point where basically the secular people and the religious people, they're both trying to coerce each other to live like the other part. That's essentially what's happening. Politicians are very divisive. There's atmosphere of, again, hostility on the streets, sometimes even violent, even to the point where you hear every few days that a brawl breaks out somewhere or on the road or something along these lines. All of this happens until October 7th. October 7th happens, shock throughout the whole country. The public is shocked, and for a few days to weeks, let's say a few weeks, everyone feels the importance of being together, the importance of being unified, the importance of caring less about what's most important for me right now and just making sure we all survive, making sure we are together, making sure we are together in this. In these short few weeks, let's say, everyone changes their tone. Everyone changes, the politics change their rhetoric. Everyone is trying to help. The Orthodox people are saying they want to join the army. Many of them, the secular people, forgot about all their feuds with the religious people. The legal reform is not interesting for anyone right now. I don't care. No one cares if you're left, if you're right, everyone is trying to donate. Everyone is trying to contribute. People are giving food, giving money, giving help. That's what's happening the moment after the October 7th happens. Now, that holds for, as I said, let's say about 3 weeks. Now, in those 3 weeks, Israel's military is organizing to get into Gaza. And then the soldiers, which are amassing right now outside of Gaza, they are soaked with this atmosphere of unity that is happening above all of the differences and all of the conflicts and all of the belligerence that existed just a few days before. Now they feel that they're surrounded and enveloped by this one force, one unified force, that everyone just cares for each other and helps each other, and we don't care who you are. Does
it also feel
historic?
Also, does it also feel like they're part of like a history as well?
Absolutely. People are expressing in those few weeks, as the military, as the IDF soldiers and all the reservists are also, being recruited and everything. Everyone feels like there's something really, really big that's happening. Now, it depends on who you are. Some people, relate it to look at it from a religious perspective. Other people look at it from a different perspective. But there's no doubt that everyone feels like we have to be together now. Now, this is the atmosphere that the soldiers go, they are soaked with it, and that's what they go to the battlefield with. And then they start the war starts, and they start. The soldiers there are doing their thing, and
this is
what's
that
happening?
intersection, right? That we talked
Right.
about.
This is the what is it? The Gilat intersection.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's been
The early days. Yeah.
yeah. This is probably the
The
early
only thing
days.
I recognize is Israeli grass, but tell me what else is going on here.
Yeah, this is a good example. The Gilat intersection is a place close to, it's about 10 minutes away from where I am in the direction towards Gaza. So it's close to Gaza, and it's like, it became like a stop where soldiers who are going in and out of Gaza, they stop there. And it's just a place in the middle of close to like a main road. And there are people there every day since the beginning of the war. It's still going on, by the way. I was there like just 2 weeks ago. And every day, this place feeds and helps and accommodates thousands and thousands of soldiers that are coming in and out. And the soldiers that are getting in there, they encounter people who are volunteers from all over the country who came to flip a burger for them, or to do a massage for them, or to cut their hair, or to give them some fruit, or some grandma with cooking porridge for them. It could be, it's like an atmosphere of, all of a sudden,
Like a Woodstock.
it's kind of a word that comes up. It's not quite Woodstock, but something along these lines. One of the doctors that I was with, a cool guy, an eye doctor. We were there. Music, by the way, 2 different artists are coming and performing there. Of course, everything's free. Everything. It's tons of food is being prepared there, and for the soldiers and everything. Anyway, that doctor said that it just, every time we go in, it's like, it just feels like a wedding. And in a way, it's kind of like the people of Israel are remarrying each other. They're kind of being reminded
nice.
of how they have a marriage. Anyway, that's the atmosphere that the soldiers in the battlefield feel between them. But after a few weeks, all the rest of the public, what can you do? There is, there is a war happening. There are politicians who want to keep their jobs. There are media people who want to keep their ratings. And you have 4 competing channels, news channels in Israel. And what happens is that the atmosphere begins to be divisive again. Bit by bit, all of a sudden, you see that again, people are starting to call out other people, to blame others. There begins to be, it's not quite there like it was, before October 7th, but there's definitely, after the first few weeks of the shock and the unity that comes from the shock, there's a sense of divisiveness that creeps in to the public discourse and the public atmosphere. Now, what's interesting is that the soldiers in the battlefield, they're disconnected, to remind you, they're disconnected from their phones, they're disconnected from the media, they don't watch the news. To them, that reality doesn't even exist. And so for a month or 2, some of them didn't even see home at all for 2 months. For that amount of time, they feel like they've rediscovered what Israel is what being Israelis is all about, and what being together is all about. And they feel they actually go and further intensify that sense of unity, because like we said, they're in a battlefield. Their life literally depends on each other. Now, this thing that the soldiers feel in the battlefield is very special. It's very unique. I can't say that I feel the same thing being just 20 minutes away from the battlefield. But to some extent, there, even where I am in a clinic that is protected and I'm not, getting shot at or anything like that, I'm taking care of people medically. But even there, with a few medics and a few doctors, that's my team, there is some sense that, we're already here, we have to get along. But that is like intensified 1 billion times in the battlefield. between the people there. And then all of a sudden, the soldiers have to be refreshed somewhat, so they come back home, and then they turn on the TV, they turn on their phones, and they begin to see.
Explain that for a second when you say they have to be refreshed. So just technically what happens?
Yeah, well, this is an ongoing war, and it's not a day or a week or 2 weeks, it's months.
So they go home for a certain period of time.
So the people, they have to get home for at least a few days,
and then they go back.
Yeah, and then they go back, and that's the weirdest. That's how that messes with your mind. Yes, this is like, it's insane. It's insanity.
They go home, everyone's going to the market. They're just
it's
doing
insanity. These
stuff.
are people who they left their jobs, their wives, their kids, their businesses, their studies, whatever it is, and they just went to risk their life to protect their homeland, and literally because there's no choice and there's no one else.
You come home and there's billboards for candy bars, and there's
then exactly the dissonance is very, very, very stark.
So I want to kind of move it a little forward, because that feeling, we talked about that feeling on a few occasions. We talked about a similar feeling existing way back between the temples when Jews had that sort of unity. Actually, back then it was not unity, for a certain goal like preservation, like we have now. It was actually for a higher goal, which we mentioned, we talk about here all the time. Now this unity feels more, obviously it was forced on us from the outside. It's been kind of shoved down our throat and like, take it. And obviously those who are in the front lines, they feel the need to be united. They feel that their lives depend on it. The question is this sustainable? Is this going to last?
I think,
is this going to win?
No, of course,
in the long term, over what's
of course, this is
trying to crack it.
This is clearly induced by external factors and the life-threatening situation that they're in. But I'll tell you what is interesting, because of now, the soldiers are now seeing that the same atmosphere they went to war with is not continued in the Israeli public at large. They now have a perspective, and I'm sure you're aware of it. There's now a campaign, for instance, by a lot of the soldiers, basically saying, they're all spreading videos.
Shut the F up.
They're basically saying, listen, all of those sitting in the studios, all of the politicians, all of those on social media, whoever you are, if you don't have anything unifying to say, just shut the hell up. And thousands of soldiers are echoing that message. Why is that interesting? That's interesting because now there begins to be a dialogue between a part of the public that feels the importance and the urgency of unity, and a part of the public who kind of forgot it in the last month or so, the last month and a half. That's a very interesting situation, because now you have a dialogue inside the people of Israel about the importance of unity as a component in our life. That's a very interesting evolution, I would say, that is happening. And let me just throw a tangent here. If you want, we can go deeper into it. If not, we won't. But
we love tangents.
The Jews abroad, they're still Jews, and clearly, even though they don't live in Israel, some of them may have never been to Israel, but October 7th and the world's attitude to it, there's a lot to say about that too, of course, but that made it hard for Jews abroad to ignore their connection to Jews in Israel and their connection to Israel. So the entire Jewish network across the globe is getting ripples, and there's like a shockwave that's going through the whole network. And I'm interested in where we might see some dialogue happening, like there's now a dialogue beginning to happen. It's not yet happening full blown, but it's somewhat happening inside the Israeli public about the fact that we have to rise above the differences in some way, complete each other and not hate each other, even if we're opposite, even if we're different. We have to find a unifying a state of existence. Just like this discourse begins to happen in Israel, I hope to see some sort of a dialogue beginning to happen between Jews abroad and Jews in Israel as well, about the need for connection there as well.
So
But
I want to say
we'll
something
see.
at this intersection, just because right before our talk here, I was actually on another meeting that was organized by one of our guests here that was here, Gary Wexler. You can watch the episode. I believe it's episode 60, I think. This was an unusual gathering because, and he opened the meeting by saying it's an unusual gathering because we have a gathering. He said we have a gathering of people, or amcha, he called it, not of organizations. It was a feeling of like, all right, we got to do something. He wrote, for those who haven't heard, haven't seen the episode, he wrote about this, an article about right after October 7th about his experience 20 something years ago with a guy named Amir Makul in Israel, who told him about the plan to dominate social media. Well, there was no social media, just media at the time. Take over the college campuses, start the whole pro-Palestinian rallies, and really wash over the world. And he saw it happening, one for one, everything that the guy was saying. And so he wrote this article saying, like, we've been dragged into this battlefield, the media battlefield, and we're late to that battlefield, and we're reactive, and we're not doing the right thing, and we're not united. We don't have even one message. We don't even know who we are. This he also added after our talk. It's like, what's the Jewish identity? What's the soul that we're...
This is what the drama is about.
Right. So
I call it a drama. That's why.
Just to finish that.
Go
that
ahead.
thing.
Yeah.
So he was like, this is the first time that so a lot of people emailed him after the article, we want to help out, and not just like regular people. I'm talking about really some of the best minds out there, Harvard grads, and I don't know if Harvard is a good name, but people who are people who you'd love to have a coffee with, right? Just to pick their brain. Educators, marketers, movers, shakers, people who are connected, really. And then I saw the bios were just so impressive, and they all showed up like, okay, what are we doing? And so this was the first time this is happening. And at the beginning, he invited a friend of his who's a rabbi. He's like, yeah, Rabbi, give us your blessing. And the rabbi, he didn't give a blessing. He said, well, I want to point you to, what an interesting thing in the Bible. When, there's one time people of Israel, when they came out of Egypt, that they refer to them as one, right? And that's around Mount Sinai. And we talk about it a lot in the, Seth always likes to bring that moment, right? But there was also the Egyptians. The Egyptians were also, are also referred to as one, Vayidof, that the minute that they chase them, it's like one. And it's like, and Rashi is like, what is the difference between this oneness and this oneness? And he said the Egyptians, well, they have a purpose, they have a goal. They hate the Jews, they want to kill the Jews, and that's what unites them. But the Jews, when they unite around the mountain, they don't know what they're going to receive. They don't know what's coming. They're just like united for the sake of something higher. And that was his blessing. Like, he didn't give a blessing. He said that we need unity. And after that, people, just talked about their ideas and all that. Great ideas, but none of them really talked directly about the issue. As you started to say, the need to connect the Jewry and to tell them what Jews are about. So the question is, Joseph, how do you think we can do it in 5 minutes or less? No, I'm kidding. We have time, but
well,
I mean, what are your thoughts?
Clearly, I'll tell you point blank. Actually, I mean, look at what is causing it to happen. Look at what is actually beyond whatever ideas we come up with. Look at reality. What is reality showing you? When there is a threat, when there is war, when there is suffering, tragedy, and an existential risk, then the discussion, the importance,
it's such an expensive price to pay.
Okay, so I'm saying this is what we see from reality. War helps that, as unfortunate and tragic as it is.
But also, if it's a small war, wouldn't help it as much. If it was 20 people, tragically something happened, it wouldn't. Maybe 500. maybe it wouldn't. It has to also be like tragic
Let,
enough.
let me
that-
tell you something. If you threw my mind now into another. I was about to complete the other answer, but you threw my mind to another thing. Maybe we can go take a detour for a second. What was the most most major event in the October 7th attack?
The party, no?
The party. Take a look at what's happening here. I want to draw your attention to how everything that we're seeing is embedded in laws of nature. We're dealing with, as human beings, we think of ourselves as detached from, we're talking about society, the media, people's conflicts, nations, social media campaigns. We're also part of nature, and everything that's happening to humans and everything that's happening to the Jewish part of humanity, that and the relationship of the Jews and the rest of the world, all of that is embedded in laws of nature. Now, what's very interesting about the party is that the party made it. Gaza has been shooting rockets and even carrying out attacks for the last 20 years on places in the south. What's very interesting in with the party is that the party was a situation where kids from all around the country came there. That created something very tragic. But
by the way, it's not just around the country. There were people from like 70 nations there.
That too.
It's so weird.
Too. Yeah. Very interesting. All of a sudden, you have this situation where it's no longer the north and the center and the south of Israel are three separate areas that don't feel each other so much. All of a sudden, everyone has a friend or a daughter or a son or someone they know who was in that party. All of a sudden, there's something that's happening that is like through a ripple effect, ripples throughout the whole network, the whole public. And yes, it is interesting that it's not just people from all around Israel. It's people that also, it has connections to people all around the world. So such an event happens, and all of a sudden, no one in the country, at least, can avoid it. What am I trying to say in relation to the previous question? So war or tragic events like that drive us, impel us to move to think about unity. So that should teach us that the only way to get there, instead of being pushed by war, is to take that war into our hearts on our own. If we replace, it's either war on the outside or it's war on the inside. And that was also what was beginning to happen. If you think about it, here in Israel before the attack, there was starting to be war on the outside between us, between people here, Jews here. And so we have to take that issue of unity and division as an internal war inside of every person. When we do that, when we start fighting for unity of our own accord, volitionally, that's where we need to be if we want to avoid troubles pushing us to that from the outside.
Joseph, I think a lot of people, definitely people who listen to our show, and we have people, we get comments from people from, Arabs, from non-Jews who, are like, quote unquote, maybe white nationalists or identify with the other side. We get all kinds. And people get our message. A lot of people get our message. I mean, those who are not trolls and be like, whatever, Jews, I killed the Jews. Those who are not that, who actually listen, they're like, oh, this is an interesting explanation. This is the... But the question that I have is like, okay, we know about this. In fact, we're being told about this by so many, even non-Jews, and somehow we're not listening. I mean, I think that's everyone who gets it is asking himself, okay, when will we get it? And I want to just turn your attention to before you answer, just to. Oh, sorry. There's some rockets not on us, but
there. If your phone is
No, I'm on some other website, but I want to read just this few lines from Israel. Just I don't know if it's I don't want to say Israel. Someone eliminated El Aruri, who was number 2 in Hamas. He was a terrorist. He was in Israeli prison for 18 years, and then he was released and he was told to leave the country. He left, but it didn't stop him from continuing to plan and carry out attacks and arm the terrorists and all of that. And now he was sitting in Lebanon, and suddenly a missile hit his apartment and he was eliminated. So it could be Israel. I don't know. But the point is, 10 years ago, when someone interviewed him right after the Gilad Shalit deal, where they returned over 1,000 terrorists, right, in exchange for one Israeli soldier, which in itself is was already a great testament to we value life. The other side, they don't value. They just admit that one Israeli is worth 1,000. That's a funny thing, but nobody talks about that. But that's not the point. The point is, they interviewed him after this exchange, and he said in an interview in Hebrew to an Israeli news reporter, he said that he would be happier if Israel would have refused for the deal to release Shalit in exchange for over 1,000 terrorists, and the reporter was found it hard to believe what he's hearing, and Aruri explained to him that as an enemy, he would rather have Shalit not released in order for the Israeli society to continue to be torn from within around this tough argument. Tearing up the Israeli society was more important to Aruri than the release of his friends.
Of course.
Okay. So
of course. No, you also have you have interviews from the terrorists who were caught on October 7th saying, we were looking at the rift in the Israeli society and we were thriving on it. And that was an indication for us to go ahead and do it.
So that's happening, and we're not listening already.
The craziest thing, bro, all of us, all of us as Jews, especially those who, we say that every year, in the, what is it, in Passover, I think, it's Bechol dor vador omdim alenu lechalotenu, and it's so crazy that this phenomenon of the
in every generation they rise up against
exactly. It's so crazy that we're even singing it and we're speaking it and we're saying it and we don't know, and it doesn't dawn on us, that what is actually happening. This has been happening for a few thousand years, and this is what the sages, I
think the modern person, and probably if we go back, it's not just the modern person, that we live our life, and then the book, the Torah, the Haggadah, all these things, it's like the football team that we like, or maybe we really like, or it's the politician, we're really into Trump, or we would never vote for Trump. It's a garment that we wear. Like there's me, and then there's this thing. I do the holidays every year. I don't eat bacon. I do this, whatever it is. It's a garment that I wear, but it doesn't infuse.
Because we don't think that it's talking about laws of nature, laws of reality, nothing less than that. That's what we're talking about. This is the physics of mankind. What's happening to the Jews, what's happening in the world, what's happening in Israel, there's a physics to it.
A person needs to find himself inside this story. He needs to find that this story is talking specifically about his own life and his own existence and all of his pain and the end to all of his pain and where this is all heading.
Yeah, one of the things that are most like it's unimaginable to me. There are the parents, like bereaved parents. There are parents losing their children in this war almost every day. Some of them say things that it sounds almost like this is like. It's like
almost all of them.
it's almost
Was it?
prophetic. It's
Almost all of them, yeah. There
I
was
mean,
just a guy who died here in Petah Tikva. He was a lone child, an only child. And a friend of ours who was here on the podcast, Hanoch, went to visit the family, and the father grabbed him at the end. He's like, "Is there something? One thing that you take out of this after the funeral? Is one thing you take out of this is like make this be not in vain, that we will stay united like that."
Exactly. I mean, the parents of another soldier who died a few days ago, Yonatan Louvel, I think that's the name. His parents, it's like in the funeral, these are bereaved parents. You just lost your child. It's unimaginable. And what they're saying is, we're embracing all of the people, all the nation. We're asking you, we're begging you, we're begging the media, we're begging every person on social media, just please, even just for one day, let's just go back to being together, even just for one day, in the memory of our son. That's something that is, or the mother of Iris Chaim, the mother of Yotam Chaim, the soldier, the hostage who was killed by mistake from IDF fire, right? And she records this message saying to the soldiers, we love you, we are not, we're not angry, we are not, just go there, do your job, be strong, everything you did. How can that even, how do you even get the emotional, faculty, resources?
They got a superhuman
to do that
power.
And I think these are messages that we need to hear as a group, as a nation, as a public. We need to hear that. We need to hear that as if it's coming from our own heart, because the force that enables a parent, that makes that parent say that and act that way, doesn't come from herself. It comes from something higher than an individual, than that parent. It comes from feeling something in the connection between all the people that is higher, that is greater. And back to Jewish identity, that is what the drama is all about. That is what we've lost for 2,000 years now already. That is what we completely forgot of, what Jewish identity really is about. And that is connection above all differences to achieve balance with nature's law, or in other words, with the divine, if you want to call it like that. But that's what these people were, I recently thought about, I know this is something you're always talking about, I'm sure, like in, the history. I'm not going to go back to Abraham and the history of the Jews and everything, but it's so crazy to me that, there's such a clear example in front of us, to how easy it is to forget, when did America start? 1770 something, right? 70, 75, 76, something like that. Yeah. About 250 years. So 250 years ago, there was no such thing as an American. Just think about it. I mean, of course, there were Native Americans. They were there for thousands of years. But the American person we know today, there was no such thing. There was no American 250 years ago. And everything we call, any person from those 350 million we call Americans today are European colonists, essentially, who came from, from whatever, from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Spain, from all kinds of places, and they created this new identity called Americans. That's it, 250 years ago. Today we think about it as a fact. We think about, people are just Americans, No, there was no such thing. And the Jewish identity did not exist until it was created. And it was created by an amalgamation of people who said, in the diversity, in the differences, through the conflicts, if we focus on unity, we can achieve connection with the binding force of nature, with the divine force of nature, whatever you want to call it. That's what Jewish identity is all about. But we completely forgot. Just like today, we think of, American as just an American. But so I'm just using that as an example, but I'm saying everything that's happening today, including October 7th, and those ins and outs inside the Israeli public, this discussion, this public discourse about unity, this is the spiritual revival, the painful and tragic, but ultimately positive spiritual revival of the Jewish identity and the Jewish people. To understand what we're really about and where we came from and what's our role in this in nature.
So this is the one of the toughest points that we had to deal with. Again, I'm going back to kind of the steps that were taken. So at first, people didn't think there was anti-Semitism. Now everybody knows there's anti-Semitism. Then people weren't sure why it's happening. Then everyone listening to our show knows, or at least they heard. I don't know if they agree 100%, but they heard it has to do with our relationships between each other, disunity or unity. And now we're getting to a point of, okay, let's tell everyone, let's start to exercise it. But it feels like this thread of unity is sometimes it feels so fragile when you compare it to all the other stuff around and all this heavy-handed stuff that, the influences from the media and the war and this, it's hard to really put your stock in it. Let's say, yeah, this is gonna not only save us, this is gonna change the world. How do we bring that into people's hearts? That certainty.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is the question, isn't it? I mean, I think I'm thinking about this question as I'm there with the other people in the clinic. I'm thinking about this the whole day, and what I see is that there's a great drama that needs to happen one way or another. It's a drama. It can't, because what does it mean to appreciate unity as the main issue? It means a revolution inside one's heart. This is what it means. It means that unity is a gateway. This positive connection between us is a gateway to a higher reality, to a higher standard of life, to a different kind of existence. That's what it means. This now for people to accept that, you either have to be in a life-threatening situation, or we have to make that the most important thing in our society. And
I think not only most important thing in general. I don't. When you look at people, if we were to ask a questionnaire across humanity, I don't think that most people even have this on the calendar. I need to get my kid in college. I need to get my mortgage paid. I need to pay my bills this month. I need to get to the doctor next month about that rash on my leg. I need to make sure my mother's okay. We don't even get out of that box our entire life and understand that there is a possibility for something more. I think this is why we're talking about unity, but the unity is a means towards this life where, at that intersection, you taste it, where this one's cooking for you, this one's playing you music, this one's giving you a massage, this one's cutting your hair. It's like, this could happen. This could be, and that's that's the first level of just people getting along with each other and sharing what they can do in their free time instead of just road rage.
Yeah. By the way, when you go to that Gilat Junction, it really mesmerizes you from that perspective, exactly, and everyone knows it. It's not just someone like me who's a veteran Kabbalah student, and the notion of connection and spiritual unity is something that I'm dealing with. I'm just saying, people coming there to that place, it overwhelms you. It's like, wow, all of us, everyone's just trying their best to be good to everyone, just trying their best to complete what's happening with their talent, to add their their, half a shekel, so to speak, their 2 cents to the situation. Everyone is just
The crisis, the crisis may be that people people don't have this compelling vision of what life could be.
That's what I'm saying. We've this is true across the globe, not just here or there. Everywhere. As human beings, we believe that this life we are familiar with is the best we can do. And even if we think it could be better, we think about it in the same terms. I need to be better at this game of fighting each other and killing each other and being at each other's throat and being number one and fighting my way in this world to make it better, to be better or greater than others. That's the kind of game that we are familiar with, and we're grown into it, and we're indoctrinated by it, and this surrounds us everywhere. The media, social media, the algorithms, everyone's feeding us with that all the time. So when you go to suddenly an environment like in the battlefield between the soldiers who are fighting, or in that Gilad Junction where everyone's just trying to help the soldiers, or when suddenly, or when you hear these bereaved parents say what they say, suddenly it gives you that glimpse that there is a different, higher state of being that we can be in, and it has to do with us human beings discovering our connection above our differences. And that's what Jewish identity is all about. That's what the meaning of being a Jew is. That's where it came from. But just like with regards to being an American, we forgot what it means, where it came from and what it's about. And what's happening now is the rediscovery. It's like the amnesia that we need to kind of get rid of and remember who we are and what we're for. That's a big thing. It's a big thing. So you're asking.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, we're still like, we're united to win the war, or we're united that they're not going to kill us. Mm-hmm. And then we're now talking about this even more refined next level of what this could be about. And we need to keep adding this piece into the conversation, that there is something big, there's something good, not just running away from the bad, but there's something good in our future.
I wonder if the strategy is to again tempt people with there's something good in our future, versus to restore confidence in something that existed in our past, versus to maybe help people open up to the fact that there's really just a lot more to life than living in this way. Maybe it's even a deeper kind of, like, look around you, is this the world that you want? Is this the best you think nature can do for you and you can do for nature? Maybe because we talk about our, we live in one system, we're interconnected, interlinked, all of that stuff. And Joseph has a great film from over a decade ago that I had a privilege to help with. It's called Crossroads, Labor Pains of a New Worldview, and it talks about it already back then. There's something really big that can open up, which, I don't know, do you have an inclination which strategy, or maybe it's all of them? I don't know.
Well, the thing that's really fascinating specifically with the Jews, okay, let's stay on the Jews for a second. I think education can do a lot. Education, I just mean like awareness, in contrast and in parallel with reality. Let's be realistic here. I do think that gradually, again, and I say that not just based on wishful thinking. I say that based on how I feel the people today. Like right now, even again, the people I see in the army every day, the people the Israeli public on social media, this campaign from the soldiers, the reality prepares us to change priorities and to redefine who we are and what we're for and what unity can give to us and what's our identity and so forth. Reality helps us, but we need to complete the calibration of the heart and the mind. And that can be done with the help of education. So I think that who was it? H.G. Wells, I think, maybe had a nice quote saying that, history is a chase between catastrophe and education, something like that. Anyway, he wasn't saying it in this context, but he was onto something. There's no doubt.
Joseph, can you, when you continue your thinking, and by the way, I just want to say that we are nearing the end, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, this show is within time and space. So that's a good moment to say that if you want to go beyond time and space.
So hold on. So there's a question from a friend of ours who's listening, and he's asking, Mark, asking, why does it seem that people tend to move through their days in reactive mode rather than planning for the best? It's kind of also what Seth said about the calendar, right? We react to our environment, to our circumstances, the media. Why aren't we taking control? Or is it is it only maybe the privilege or the of a select few, and the rest are sort of destined to just react and kind of follow? Or can everyone wake up in the morning and do something? Because we like to do people with the
I
feeling
think
that
it
they can
really
do something.
depends. I think it really depends on your environment and your immediate environment. Because if you think about it, you're not reactive to anything, to everything. You're very proactive about the things that you feel are immediately important to you. If you have to go and fight someone at work in order to maintain your status, you will do so. If you have to do something to get, to speak to a teacher, so that someone will stop bullying to speak to the principal so that they'll stop, the other kids will stop bullying your son at school or something, you will go and do it if it touches on your immediate nerve. So
pain,
I think that
basically, pain.
Yeah. So
there's enough pain.
Unless as a society, we make this notion of unity, this connection, we make that immediate and important to each and every one of us. And I think that's the key to make us more proactive about it. But you're right. I mean, it's right. It's kind of a natural mechanism, defensive, passive mechanism of our nature that, we won't put effort and thinking into something that we don't feel is harmful or beneficial to us. If something's very beneficial to you, you won't be reactive. You'll go and do what you need to get it. If you know that you can get it and you know that it'll bring a lot of benefit, that's what we're lacking with working on rising above differences, working on connection, working on unity. We need to see how great a reality is just around the corner versus the horrible, tragic existence that we are living right now as human beings on this planet. Nothing we do here is right now. I can go into a whole hour on that, but we'll we don't have that time.
It'll probably be an episode in the Great Transition on everything that's wrong. Well, I don't know. It's I think it's a reassuring message that you can, and we say it also, if we can choose an environment that will help you at least be aligned with your goals, with your end goal, with your vision for this better world. That's a great start. Start with that. I think that's what we say to people. This is something we can do. Like you have enough in you to just kind of put yourself in that environment. There was a guy who's called the Urban Monk. You remember him, Seth? Is this old? Actually, I think he was a Jewish guy. I'm not sure, but don't hold me to it. And it was kind of like this New Age guru type of guy, and he was an older guy already, like 20 years ago when I discovered him. And he said, he never took any pictures, and he wanted to shoot something, and so a friend gave him a camera, and he went with the camera somewhere, and the guy never shot anything. Suddenly he was producing these amazing collages, like this unbelievable stuff. Right, like this kind of like this enlightenment mode, right? You can suddenly something amazing happens, and they asked him, and they asked this monk, the urban monk, like, how do you do that? It's like, well, I have only one advice, is like, go somewhere, plant yourself. Then if you just plant yourself in the place, then from that a lot of then you can grow in it, but you have to plant yourself. And so I am taking it to our thing. If you just plant yourself, we have enough energy to just plant ourselves somewhere. This we have the ability to do. Even if you're super reactive and everything, you can still choose a circle, a group, right, that can at least start working on you in the right way, I think. But I don't know what to say.
I mean, one thing I would say on an optimistic note is we need to see that there's a much bigger process that's taking place beyond this limited point within time and space that we are encountering and experiencing right now, and specifically with regards to the Jewish people. Just like we didn't start from our journey from today, we're not going to end it tomorrow. It's a big journey, and we should learn about it, and so that we can all identify with the bigger drama that's taking place.
So we don't have to repeat it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So Joseph,
yeah, exactly.
We let our guests read. We asked our guests, I should say, to read a quote at the end. So I posted one for you in the chat. If you can read this, and that'll be our you'll take us out with this quote.
Where's this quote from, Leo?
It's from. I didn't put it. It's from. Hold on. I'll tell you. Stay with me. I have it. I had it. It's. I think Maimonides.
I see the quote. Okay,
yeah, it's Maimonides. I think it's Maimonides. I'll find out in a second. So, whenever you're ready, Joseph.
Love your friend as yourself. All the things you wish others do unto you, these do unto your brothers. The law that Abraham, our patriarch, established, and the graceful manner of his conduct is as follows. He fed the passerby with bread, gave them drink, and accompanied them.
This was Maimonides. This was Maimonides, and I think this kind of fits how we started with the intersection.
Yeah,
right. It's like
definitely.
It's a simple thing.
Yeah, you could really hang it there in the entrance, and everyone would get it. It's but that's the message. We can do it. The more we do it of our own accord, the less we need to be pushed in horrible ways.
We're all waking up every day, and we're just running from pain. We want to be healthy, so we run up and we go run. We want to be able to pay the bills, we get up right away and run to work. We're just running and running from problem to problem. And the Jewish people have this birthright, have this legacy, have this example to be a light, to show what it could be if everyone takes care of everyone, and what kind of incredibly wonderful, full of love life we can have if we all move towards this proactively.
It's true. What can I say, Joseph? You've been a light unto our little nation here, and I hope everyone can tune into the Great Transition. When is that happening?
Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, right after this. But it's not live, or is it live?
It's live, of course.
Live on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern, yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's right after this. So tune into the Great Transition.
Today's Sunday.
Oh, today's Sunday? Oh, all right. Forget about it. Just look up the Great Transition, follow that. It's good stuff. And crossroadsfilm.com is a great film to watch. And in general, we're the Thejewfunction. Like us, subscribe, share it far and wide. And we'll see you here next time on our next show.